My name is Daniel Dimovsky, and in this video, um, I am presenting or studying the game between former world champion Garry Kasparov and Vassily Ivanchuk. The the game was the game is from the year 1989. Um, the, I think this is a tournament in Tilburg in Netherlands, and at the time, all these players, unlike to what it is written here, represented the Soviet Union. Of course, it's 1989 still, and of course, we know that Garry Kasparov was arguably one of the best chess players ever, and one of his um, the players he feared the most during his rule over world chess was Vassily Ivanchuk with his genius plays and um, incredible calculations and attacking prowess. And Vassily Ivanchuk is, of course, also one of the most loved chess players in the online chess community as well. But the reason why I'm studying this game is I'm a D4 player and I'm trying to learn to play better my D4 openings. And one of the problems I have is was I have a best score against King's Indian defense, and I already presented 3 or 4 games in King's Indian defense. This time, I'm studying Queen's Indian defense, and the Garry Kasparov was a D4 player, faced Queen's Indian defense many times. A lot of times, again in championship matches and other matches versus um, Anatoly Karpov, who was an ardent, like a very big on the Queen's Indian defense, and Vassily Ivanchuk was also a big Queen's Indian defense practitioner. And let's get to the game. It's a very good opening. Many modern players are playing it still. It was so in '89, and it still holds to this day. Nowadays, modern top players, I would probably uh, emphasize on the plays of Sergei Karyakin. There was another Ukrainian player. There's another Dmitry Kryakin or something like that. He's playing and he made a course on Queens in defense. Hans Niemann is playing from black side and so on and so on. So let's start with the game. Finally, d4, knight f3, c4 standard setup in Queen's Gambit, and black is playing e6, preparing various variations. Can play either from this position, can play Nimzo Indian, or he can play Queen's Indian. There are lots still making his options open here. Now, this move, knight f3, is a anti-Nimzo Indian line. So I don't know exactly why. I cannot explain the picadillos, and I need to study it more. But when they play knight f3, it means they don't play knight c3, which would come like there's a possibility of black playing bishop b4. That's an Indian defense. But when you're playing, you kind of like black cannot play it on the next move because the knight is not ready there. You cannot pin it, and this it's not there yet. Okay, so queen's in the defense with once you play the bishop b6, uh, follow-up move would be to fianchetto bishop from c8 to b7, and Garry Kasparov is responding to that with him fianchettoing on the other side, g3 and bishop g2 as a response. Well, those two sniper bishops will be facing each other this diagonal. That's that's the idea. Or you don't have to play bishop b7. You can play bishop a6 with a funny attack like at this point pawn c4, one of the weaknesses in the white's position. Um, Defending with b3, and now bishop b4. White responds with bishop this2. And this is called Nimzowitsch variation of Queen's Indian defense, with this bishop going to b4 and then swiftly returning to e7. And this is called check variation. This is all theory. Intermezzo line, and then bishop going to to b g2 and c6. Now bishop to c3. Standard plan, maybe when returning here, going to the standard setup, similar, like kind of improvising that double fianchetto system for white. Black plays b d7 to d5, breaking the center, and breaking the center, and this is all theory. So far, all theory. The knight from b1 to d2 for the developing the pieces, and knight from b8 to d7, kind of a copycat game here. Castles, castle, and this I think ends the theory in this line, and now you can start actually the game. We're developing rook to e1. Bishop returns as no more. You cannot exploit and anything at attacking point c4. He's going back where is more useful, and this big diagonal facing the opposite. Bishop g2 in some lines. With pawn break from white for black, further increasing the tension is e2 to e4. Black takes, d takes, d5 takes e4, knight takes an e4, and black is opening his bishop on b7 with the and making a pawn break c6 to c5. Knight returns to d2 and a6. Queen to e2. Pawn takes, knight takes. So knight is more useful on b7. Exchange of the bishops, and white's king side a little bit compromised now, losing that fianchetto bishop. Be susceptible to checks on that diagonal from the queen, and so on. Queen to c7, getting inside of the game, and white is protecting his king from checks by queen. Knight f3, queen and b6, b7, pinning this knight here, getting this nice diagonal, and b4, rook to c8, getting at this open file. Rooks belong to the open files. Very practical and rook kind of a move. And rook to c1 from the other side, protecting the bishop and the pawn kind of indirectly on c4. Bishop retreats to f8. I'm not sure what this move does actually, but okay, maybe in some position, if you get this battery, it would defend the pawn on g7 from checkmate and so on. I'm just saying like that the perspective. I'm not saying that you should immediately put queen to e5 where it's attacked here, this field by knight. I'm just saying in hindsight, in some plans future, queen king um, retreats from g2 to g1, unpinning the knight here because the knight was pinned by queen on this diagonal. Rook to c7, preparing, I guess, to double the rooks on this c file, and knight to e3, a3, or not. This is always useful move, kind of putting the rook and putting the rook to the same file where the queen is, and then some kind of push maybe. Notice that this rook is defended by the knight. Bishop retreats and adding another defender to this pawn. Also defends this pawn on an a3. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I would prefer if bishop it was an a1 rather. Okay, pawn push e6 to e5, attacking the knight, and still kind of preparing this attack. Knight to f5, pawn moves further, a4, and knight to g4. Knight to e5, and rook to the d5, d1, h6, and computer didn't like this move so far, but I don't see anything problematic. Maybe you wanna leave king some space in case of big crank issues, and maybe you wanna reroute this knight and some lines to a better square, and then maybe even support this pawn. Bishop takes knight, rook takes bishop, and knight retreats from f5 where it was now attacked by rook to e3. Rook retreats, knight retreats to g2. I'm guessing want to reroute this knight like this from from h4 to g2, from g2 to f4, knight from f3, f6 to d7. What's the plan? Maybe try to find a good outpost like f3. One idea. Another idea is to be here and to get another attacker on c4. Knight reroutes and attacks the rook. Rook retreats. Knight attacks another rook. Here, it's a very strong knight here. It cannot be attacked by pawns, as there are no pawns on c or e file. It can be only changed for another bishop or knight, and also this bishop cannot attack it. A rook to c6, knight to queen to g4. Rook reroutes, another rook reroutes to e6 and h4. This kind of a structure is very good for endgames, especially the rook endgames. For some reason, I don't know how to explain, but I heard so I'm repeating it. Maybe I should try to understand it better why it is so. Queen to b8, and rook retreats as now. There was, because this pawn is blocking the queen from this diagonal, there is no threat of of some kind of pins and so on. So king is protected by this pawn, and as well, like the queen gets to this diagonal and this opens up at some point. You would rather have king here than to be able to be checked by the queen. In this kind of a position, king is better on g2. Queen to e5, uh, queen to f5. Kasparov wants to exchange the queens. Ivanchuk is playing g6. He wants a queen exchange on his terms. He wants Kasparov to take, then rook takes on e5. And the computer actually is not liking this move, exchanging the queens, and it says like Kasparov's advantage bigger because his pawns are, it's an even material, but these pawns are better, this knight is better, and this knight, this pawn overextended. There's a pawn majority here, and I don't know how to look. It looks like it's a even position, but in a positional sense, white has a big edge because a lot of his pieces are misplaced. Like this bishop, for example, is a very passive bishop. It's not here. It's blocked by his own pieces. Black pawns are, and that's where this square is not available. It doesn't bishop doesn't have a big diagonal kind of to operate on, and this is even if the bishop was here, for example, there's nothing to attack here, right? If there was nothing here, maybe you couldn't attack this here and get the pawn. Okay, so knight to c7, attacking the rook and the pawn, and the rook beats to d8 to be captured by knight. Kasparov is shuffling his rooks. Pawn to a5, trying avoiding being taken by the white side. Andrew again doesn't like this move because Kasparov just continued his plan on doubling the rooks and then pinning this. And it's not. There's no easy way to unpin here actually. You cannot go with the rook here. You cannot go with the rook here. If you go here, white can just go here and then threaten something like this. And then you're gonna lose. You can actually try to defend the rook here with with the bishop on e7, but that's only one defender. It's two defenders against two attacks with rooks if you want to unpin this knight. So you see how Kasparov's pieces are working better while Ivanchuk's pieces here are a little bit clumsy, not coordinated well. Knight pawn takes from a5, b4. Pawn takes and b4. Knight is going there, and e7. But as I said, it's gonna just get bullet here. Once you move here, here it goes there. And at this moment, seeing how he's lost his position is, Ivanchuk resigned. So this is a slow positional grind, like with many games in King's Indian defense. White, in order to, we have seen many games where queens got off the board and slowly fight emerges for the pawns and for the position and so on, kind of squeezing the opponent. That's how White should play in most of these games, from my experience. That's all I have to admit to say about this game. Strong knights, double roots, and this and this open file is what brought the victory to Garry Kasparov in this game, and that's all I can say. See you in. Thank you for watching this video, and see you in my next video.